start? There's only about 17 people in here. Should we wait a little bit more or should we get going?
I think we can probably get going. Usually they start to kind of come in as we kind of hit the 5 minute mark, but I think we can probably get going.
All right, sure. All right, let me see if I can share slides here. All right, it's wonderful to be here with you, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about generative AI with a focus on things that might be important for your career. My name is Mohammad Keyhani. I'm an entrepreneurship professor at the Haskayne School of Business, University of Calgary. I'm also cross-appointed with the strategy area at Haskayne, or strategy and global management. This is a sample of the kind of content I teach in my generative AI and prompting course, and also in my Master of Management course called Technologies of Innovation. And some of this content we might be releasing soon through a non-credit course for the general audience, through a program we call UCalgary No Code. And that's the URL under my slide here, ucalgary.ca/no code is where you can go to sign up to be informed of the latest content that we're going to be putting out around no-code software and generative AI. Very exciting stuff. So overall, I'll start by saying that really our entire lives are changing. Generative AI represents one of the biggest technological leaps that humanity has had. People are comparing it to the invention of the internet, personal computers. Some people are comparing it to the invention of electricity or even fire, in terms of how big it's going to be with its impact on our civilization. So the world is really changing in front of us, and it's both scary and exciting. Lots of unknown, lots of uncertainty is ahead of us, but also lots of opportunity. The space for new things, new opportunities, new ways to build your career is amazing. Whenever there's a new technological shift like this, it's especially important for how you build your career. If you were young when the internet was recently invented or when computers were recently invented, you had the opportunity to build your skill in an area where you were not going to be competing with people who had 10 years or 20 years of experience in that area because it was so new. Everyone was starting from scratch, even the experienced people. And so that gives an opportunity. Whenever there's a big technological shift like this, it gives an opportunity to younger people who are just building their careers because they suddenly find themselves on the same playing field, on an even playing field with more experienced professionals. So that's what happened with the internet, with personal computers, and I think that's what's going to happen with AI as well. It's going to give a chance to younger people to specialize and learn and compete in this area in a way that hasn't been available since the last big technological leap. So a lot of people are talking about ways in which generative AI might go wrong, produce mistakes, produce hallucinations. Court cases like Air Canada's recently, where their chatbot promised something that Air Canada didn't actually want to give to a client, and how that resulted in a court case. Those get the news attention, those cases where things go wrong. But actually, a lot of companies are able to take advantage of generative AI in ways that create a lot of value. Often they don't speak publicly about it. They don't make big announcements. Sometimes because it involves replacing a lot of human workers, and they don't want to make a big deal out of it. But for example, recently, one company that announced what it's doing with the Chat GPT type of AI um, was Klarna. You can see Klarna, for example, if you buy something from Shopify or any company who has a store on Shopify, you might get an option to pay for it in installments rather than directly. And that's Klarna that allows you to do that. So this company recently announced that using that ChatGPT chatbots, it has been able to do the equivalent work of 700 full-time humans. And the quality of the work has been as good, if not better. There has been a 25% drop in repeat inquiries. Issues are now resolved in less than 2 minutes compared to 11 minutes before. And the chatbot is available in 23 different markets, communicating 24/7 in 35 different languages. It's just amazing how much value it has created, but also has replaced a lot of human workers in that process. Another thing that we have realized that generative AI seems to be really good at is ideas, creativity. And this is kind of surprising because throughout the history of artificial intelligence, many people, probably most people, thought that creativity would be one of the last things that AI can get right. And it somehow turned out to be one of the first things that AI is able to do better than humans. They've studied it, for example, in a study where 200 ideas were collected from human MBA students in a good business school in the US. Another 200 ideas were created by ChatGPT. And there wasn't even that much creativity in how they gave the prompt. There wasn't even too much of a prompt engineering going on in this study to get these ideas. But out of the 200, out of the overall 400 ideas, in the top 40 ideas that were rated by experts, a full 35 of the top ones were the ones that came from ChatGPT. So we're starting to see that actually in the domain of creativity and idea generation, these AIs are really good. This new generation of AIs, which we call generative AI, mostly based on large language models, that has been the new technological shift that maybe started changing the world late 2022, 2023, when GPT-3 was released. That was really the big shift. And now we have GPT-4 in ChatGPT. We've realized that idea generation is one of the best use cases. It's really good at it. Surprisingly, these large language models are a kind of AI that are not good at very structured things like mathematical calculations. Now, they are getting better, and an interesting thing about these large language models is that they're kind of like brains that you can attach to tools. You don't have to include the tools inside the brain itself. So even if the large language model itself, like GPT-3 or GPT-4, is not great at math, you can give it tools, you can give it a calculator, you can give it Python programming tools like ChatGPT has in the code interpreter, or what they call the advanced data analytics option in ChatGPT. When you enable that, you're basically giving the brain a tool that's not in the actual brain itself, but the brain learns how to use the tool. And using that tool, it becomes good at math because it can now use the tool. And sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes ChatGPT doesn't know that it has access to those tools, and you have to remind it. You have to talk to it and tell it and remind it what tools that it actually has access to. And once it knows, it's able to produce really interesting things with those tools. So creativity and idea generation turned out to be surprisingly good with these AIs. Another big surprise has been, and even recently there was another study that showed this, empathy. So this is one of the first studies that showed how good ChatGPT can be at empathy. They got it to answer medical questions in an online forum. And then they rated the responses. They compared actual doctors' responses, physician responses, with ChatGPT generated responses. And they compared them on both quality and empathy. And ChatGPT beat the real doctors on both indicators, and probably more so on empathy than the quality. And this, again, another surprising result. But when you think about it, it makes sense because ChatGPT doesn't have some of the weaknesses of humans as well. It might not have some of the strengths, but it also doesn't have some of the weaknesses. And those weaknesses include getting tired, getting frustrated. ChatGPT is always as ready as ever, never gets fatigued or frustrated like humans do. So it makes sense that the responses would always have sort of the same level uh, of empathy. Now, this would make you think that maybe that idea that we had before this generation of AI, where we thought it would be such a cold, unempathetic environment if we had to interact with robots and AIs. Maybe that idea was wrong. Maybe we are going to like interacting with AIs so much, and we can put those AI brains, these large language models, we can put them in anything, any electronic device that can run a large language model can have that brain. They could be robots, they could be humanoid robots, they could be smart devices, they could be anything. They could be distributed devices, they could be single devices, they could be your fridge, your toaster, anything that can run a computer basically can have one of these large language model brains. So in that sense, we can interact with lots of different devices and robots that have these brains. And we might like interacting with them so much because they're more empathetic. They're always the way we like, the way we prefer. We might get addicted to it. And after a while, it might come to be that we actually prefer interacting with these AIs to interacting with humans. Interacting with humans might turn out to be something that feels like a chore or a difficulty, and we'd rather just that our AI talks to their AI and reports back rather than talking directly to a human. I don't know if we'll get there, but it seems like that might be a bit more likely possibility than people trying to avoid talking to AIs. What other things could happen if we can put these AI brains in various devices and robots that can do things that humans can't do? They can probably go to Mars or other planets and help get them ready for us to send humans to those places. That's might be an extreme example, but similar things can happen on Earth. All sorts of work, especially physical work that humans don't like to do, that's dangerous for humans, could start to be done by robots that have AI brains. It's probable that now that we have these AI brains that basically don't have the human physiological needs for food or rest or anything like that, it's possible that we can send AI representatives of ourselves to other planets. And it's possible that the first time aliens encounter our culture will be through an AI representative. And it's possible that the first time we encounter alien culture, if aliens exist, will be through their AI representatives, because it's easier for those AIs to travel space than it is for actual biological organisms. So these are just examples of the implications that this technology might have that you could think of. But let's get down to earth a little bit. How can we get better at using generative AI right now? How can we build our skills in a way that will help our careers, the way we work, the way we study? So the concept of prompting has become important. You might have heard of prompting, prompt engineering as a new skill, a new job category. I think it is really important. It takes knowledge and skill, and is sometimes weird. We don't fully understand exactly how prompting works, partly because the neural networks, those AI brains that are trained by finding patterns in billions of pieces of data, pretty much everything that has been created in writing by humans was used to train ChatGPT. Well, not everything, but a lot of our history, everything that we have produced throughout our history was used to train ChatGPT. And ChatGPT, basically, the neural network identified the patterns in the data and tries to guess, based on those patterns, what comes after a prompt. What is the next word that comes in a sentence, and then the next word, and then the next word. It statistically tries to guess that based on the patterns, and that's how it works. But giving it that prompt, giving it the input to get the desired output is not a trivial matter. It takes knowledge, it takes skill, and people are learning it. And this is the career opportunity that younger people have right now, to learn to prompt AI better than others. This is the skill that's a golden opportunity right now. I'll show you some examples of why this is an important skill and why it's not always obvious what the right prompt should be. So in another idea generation study that has been done, this time they were looking to increase the diversity of the resulting ideas. And this time, remember that in the last study, I said they didn't do anything special with the prompting. In this one, they tried different prompting strategies. I think they tried 15 or 30 different prompting strategies. I don't remember exactly the number, but one of the prompting strategies was pretend you're Steve Jobs and think of an idea about this situation. Another prompting strategy was, here are some creativity tools recommended by articles published in the Harvard Business Review. Based on these, come up with some ideas. So these were two different prompting strategies that were used. And in the results, the authors noted that for some reason, Steve Jobs did better. Pretending to be Steve Jobs did better in terms of increasing the diversity of ideas. Nobody knows exactly why. We don't have good theories yet to explain why some prompts work better than others. In some cases, we do a little bit, like the chain of thought technique, the idea of telling the AI to think through its answers step by step. We kind of know why that works well, because these large language models are designed to predict the next word. So when they sort of articulate knowledge around something step by step, in each step they are giving, it's like they are giving themselves an optimal prompt for the next step. So we kind of know why chain of thought works. We have good theories for it, at least. But something like pretend you're Steve Jobs, why that works better than learn from these Harvard Business Review articles, we don't have good theories, and we're trying to learn. And we need a younger generation of people to come and help us learn. all these new questions that are being raised by AI and the new type of AI that is being created, generative AI. One approach that people are taking to study prompting and see how ChatGPT thinks, behaves, or other generative AI models like Llama or Mistral or Anthropic Cloud, there's many of them now. ChatGPT is still one of the best ones. One approach that people are taking, they're taking theories of human psychology and they're trying to apply it to ChatGPT, sort of thinking if we apply these theories, does ChatGPT perform better? So this is one study, for example, that's applied theories of self-monitoring, social cognitive theory, and cognitive emotion regulation. Based on these, they tried different phrasings that to put in the prompt, like, are you sure? Are you sure that's your final answer? Or stay focused and dedicated to your goals. Putting these sentences in the prompt is based on human psychology. But we're not sure if AIs will behave in similar ways to humans, if they will respond to these sentences the way humans do. So studying this and seeing what works and what doesn't, people are putting a new label on it as a new field of study. They're calling it machine psychology. And I actually think in addition to machine psychology, we're going to need machine sociology, machine organization, for example, to study various aspects of how social dynamics change when AI brains are involved in those dynamics. We're going to need machine economics, maybe machine anthropology. I'm not sure, depending on how things proceed with the way we use AIs. So machine psychology is the beginning of entire new fields of study that are going to be created because we need to understand generative AI. In this study, the ones that I've marked here with yellow arrows actually were statistically significant improvements to the AI's performance, but the other ones were not. And we don't know exactly why some work better and some don't. Now, in more recent studies, it's starting to get crazy. They are asking the AIs to come up with prompts for themselves, self-optimizing prompts for themselves. And sometimes the AIs come up with ideas that humans may not have been able to think about for prompting. And sometimes those ideas do really well in unexplained ways that we don't know why. So for example, this one idea recently in a paper called The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Eccentric Automatic Prompts, they realized that one of the ideas the AI came up with for itself was to pretend that it's in the Star Trek universe and start the prompt that way, pretend it's in the Star Trek universe and ask a question. And it happened to be the best performing prompt with a really good statistical significance. And we don't have good theories, we don't have good reasons to understand why this prompt does better than others for that particular type of problem that they were studying. So this shows that all of this, I'm hoping to show that prompting is not trivial. I mean, you can do it in a trivial way, but optimizing results is not trivial. It takes knowledge and skill to figure out how to prompt well, and sometimes it's weird. We just don't know why some prompts work well and some don't. And it's really a collective discovery process. The whole world is working together to discover what works best and what doesn't. And importantly, the creators of these AIs themselves won't be able to tell you because that's not how the technology works. After you've trained the AI on billions of pieces of data, even the people who did the training, who ran the algorithm, won't know exactly how that final AI is going to work. It's a collective discovery process that the entire world is engaged in right now. You, the listener who's listening to this talk, who's watching this talk, you might discover something about how ChatGPT works or how AI works that nobody has discovered before. That's why people are sharing their discoveries and interesting prompts that they're creating in forums around the internet. As these AIs start to get multimodal capabilities, they start to get new senses. They're not only able to read text anymore, but they're also able to see images, and pretty soon they'll be able to see videos. This has implications for prompting, profound implications, because now we're no longer just trying to optimize the text, but we also need to optimize the images. And we have to, again, go through a collective discovery process to figure out what kind of images make better prompts. So in this slide, in the example on the right, for example, you can see they tried two different ways of asking ChatGPT to count the number of yellow helmets that people are wearing in the picture. Is it better to give it 8 different pictures and then ask it which ones are wearing yellow helmets? Or is it better to give it one picture? We don't know. In this experiment, it ended up being that the 8 different pictures worked better. Or look at the picture of the apples on the left. Here, we're trying to get ChatGPT to correctly count the number of apples. When they gave it a simple prompt, count the number of apples in the image, it didn't get it right. And they worked with different styles of prompt, different strategies. They said, they tried chain of thought. They said, count the number of apples in the image. Let's think step by step. It still didn't work. They said, let's count the apples row by row. Still didn't work. The ultimate prompt that ended up working well for counting the apples in this picture was this. You are an expert in counting things in the image. Let's count the number of apples in the image below, row by row, to be sure we have the right answer. So it uses chain of thought technique, it uses machine psychology to be sure, and it uses the role-playing technique for prompting to tell the AI what its role is. And that ended up working really well. So this is an example that shows the importance of knowing how to prompt well. A lot of people might just try the first prompt and give up and think, ChatGPT is still not very capable. But someone who's been able to discover that it can work with the last prompt might be able to get a lot of work done with the help of ChatGPT. Now, the new Gemini Pro model that's going to be released by Google, that's the one that can see videos, not just images, but videos. And I think that's going to change a lot of things. It might matter, for example, if we're talking to the AI through video, it might matter what gestures we use, what clothes we wear, what the background is like. All of that might make a difference in how the AI responds to us. And we don't know these things yet. We're just going to need to start studying and discovering all of these things. Now, another really cool way to learn how to get better at using generative AI is to build with it. So far, I've been talking about prompting, and prompting is something you can do on the ChatGPT interface. It's the basic interface that everyone uses. You're able to give it a prompt. But not everyone who is using the ChatGPT interface actually knows how to build with AI. Building with generative AI typically involves not using the interface itself, but using the API for the AI tools. What is an API? An application programming interface. It's the way that computer programs talk to each other. And using an API, you're able to build software tools that talk to ChatGPT as a software tool and use its services in a flow, an automation, or some other software tool that you're building. So I'll show you an example. If you go to my blog, a page on my blog, digitvibe.com/networking. There you'll see a form. And if you fill that form, you will get an email in your inbox that contains some AI generated text. The form basically asks you to introduce yourself, give me your name, email, and a description of yourself. So if you give it that, the form sends the data to a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet sends the data to OpenAI's ChatGPT, asks ChatGPT to look at your description of yourself and then consider what it knows about me, what I have told ChatGPT about myself, and compare those two and come up with ideas for how I might be able to collaborate with you who filled out the form. And then it'll come up with those ideas and automatically send you an email using Gmail with all that information. So I did not do any coding to build this software. I just used no-code tools that are available. You've probably used many of them. I used Tally for the form builder part of it, but you can use Google Forms or any form builder really. Then you need to send the data somewhere. Sometimes the tools have a direct integration with each other, so you don't need to worry about the API too much. But if they don't have a direct integration, like Google Sheets doesn't have a direct integration with ChatGPT, but you can send data from Google Sheets to ChatGPT using API connector tool like Zapier, Zapier.com, Make.com. There's various tools that are, their main job is just connecting APIs together. I really love these category of tools like Zapier and Make.com because they turn the entire internet into building blocks that you can build with. It's a liberating experience to build something with Zapier for the first time, to realize that you can connect all the different tools to each other and build things with them. So this was really easy for me to set up. I used no coding whatsoever, and I built an email bot that for my own personal networking needs. And it works really well, and I like the way it works. This is an example of what a Zapier Zap looks like, where a row gets added to Google Sheets that triggers an action that sends something to OpenAI, and once you get the result from OpenAI, that triggers another action to send an email in Gmail. So that's the kind of thing you can do with Zapier. Now, I've told you about prompting and building with generative AI, which I think are two important skills that you need, and they are super easy to learn, but have their own tricks and nuances. But it really doesn't take too much time to become better than the average person. Now, I want to leave you with two important warnings before I wrap up around generative AI. One is, it's important to remember that AI-generated work is your work, and you hold responsibility for it. Now, not everyone agrees with me, but everyone has this question these days in universities. All the professors are dealing with this problem. When a student hands in work that is obviously generated with AI, what do we do? How do we grade it? Does it get a 0 grade? Is it considered plagiarism? Do we send it back and ask them to write it themselves instead of writing it with the AI? Or should they be learning how to use the AI? Should we be encouraging it? Is this a new era, a new skill that we need people to learn? My take on it is that AI generated work is your work, so I don't consider it plagiarism. But I will hold whoever sends me AI generated work responsible for the work completely. I will completely consider it their work, and any mistakes, any cliche writing, any bad styling, any hallucinations that the AI may have had, all of that I will consider uh, weaknesses or problems of the work that was delivered to me. Especially important for me is whether or not the person who sent it to me actually read it, understood it, and agreed that they want to say that to me. Because I think when somebody has sent written work to me or content that they've created to me, they are implicitly signing a social contract that says, I hereby take responsibility for this text, and I hereby testify that this is what I want to say to you. So if you have not read the text and you're sending it to me, you're basically, it's like you're signing a contract that you have not read. It's borderline criminal. And I hold people accountable for the text that they send to me. And I think that's how people should treat it. If you're sending someone text that is AI generated, either you have fully taken responsibility for it and you fully consider that text what you want to say, or you disclaim that this is AI generated. If you don't do one of these, then something is wrong. And I want to make sure that people have this ethical understanding of what to do with AI generated content. You cannot just copy and paste and present it as your work without really taking responsibility for it. Unless you say this is AI generated content and I don't take responsibility for it. So for example, the email bot that will send you automatic text generated by AI in my networking page, it will disclaim exactly what parts of the email are AI generated. And if I didn't do that, I consider that unethical because I don't read all those emails before they go out. It's automatic. The second warning I want to leave you with is using this type of AI a lot will weaken some of your cognitive muscles. It's the reason why most of us aren't great at handwriting anymore because we type all the time. Or most of us don't know how to ride horses anymore because we don't use horses as much as human civilization used to. So we're going to lose some skills because of AI, but this is a particularly powerful AI that can weaken some of our cognitive muscles. And studies are already showing in some cases that people, quote unquote, fall asleep behind the wheel when they start to use AI too much. And this can happen. This is something that is happening right now in our society, but because it's slow, because it's so new, we are not fully aware of the impacts yet. We're not fully sure what's going to happen, how things are going to pan out. But we know there's already signs that relying too much on the AI might weaken some of our cognitive muscles. So this is something to be aware of as you get started with generative AI and try to improve your skills. That's basically what I wanted to tell you guys today. Thank you so much for listening to my talk. I encourage you to go to ucalgary.ca/no-code to learn more about the type of content that we're going to be releasing for the public soon. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was so informative. I really enjoyed just sitting and getting to listen and learn a little bit more about AI. That's definitely something that is up and coming in the world, like you said, and something that everyone should, understand on a deeper level. So now I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. And if you guys haven't watched any of our sample lectures yet, I'm just going to do a quick recruitment presentation. So basically, I'm just going to go over some admission requirements and everything like that to get into the commerce program. So this is just a little bit about UCalgary. So UCalgary at a glance, just a couple of quick statistics for you. So we were founded in 1966. We have about 28,000 undergraduate students, 5 campuses, and 14 faculties. So that's quite a bit to do in less than 100 years for us. We are also Canada's entrepreneurial university, which kind of goes hand in hand with that Bachelor of Commerce. We have about $504 million in sponsored research funding. And then 2 of my favorite statistics are down here. So we have a 94% after graduation employment rate, and then a 95% undergraduate retention rate. And that undergraduate retention rate really speaks to student life satisfaction on campus, satisfaction with classes, with professors, with everything that we kind of offer you throughout your 4-year degree. And now this is just a little bit on our admissions information. So the general requirements for all of our undergraduate programs that you can enter into right out of high school are going to be 5 faculty-specific grade 12 classes, and admission is competitive. So we will be looking at the overall average of those 5 classes. So there are some programs that have some additional requirements, such as the Bachelor of Health Sciences, which is going to have a supplemental application. And then fine arts, dance, and music is going to have an audition. And then fine arts visual studies is going to have a portfolio required. And then all students must also demonstrate that they have English language proficiency. So this is just some specific information about the Bachelor of Commerce program. So these are those 5 faculty-specific classes that we're looking for to get into the Haskayne School of Business. So we're looking for English, we're looking for Alberta Mathematics 30-1 or equivalent. So if you're out of province or out of country, we're looking for kind of that pre-calculus class that you would be taking in your grade 12 year. And then 2 approved courses, excluding courses equivalent to physical education, fine arts, and non-calculus mathematics. So it's going to be 2 approved courses, specifically, usually in the social studies science realm is where we're going to be finding those courses, but we're just looking for 2 approved courses, and then an approved course or option. That's kind of our more fun classes, some people like to call them. So it can be your drama, it can be your dance, it can be your theater, it can be, physical education, stuff like that, that we might be able to use for that overall admissions average. And then these are just some important dates. So if anybody is joining us tonight who has an offer for fall 2024, you might be a little bit more familiar with these dates than anyone who is looking at applying for fall 2025. So you can see here, 2024, 2025. The nice thing with these dates is that they don't typically change from year to year. So the only thing that would change is the year. The big ones that are coming up right now are the May 1st decision deadline for all of our students who have an offer for fall 2024. You have until May 1st to accept that offer and pay your admissions deposit. But then for any students looking to apply with us next year, August 1st, it's going to open to international students. And then October 1st is going to be the application opening for domestic students. And then these are just a couple ways to connect with us. So you can see here, if you go to the left-hand QR code, you can connect with a recruiter for your specific region. So we have region-specific recruiters so that they can talk to you and understand your curriculum a little bit better. You can also download our view book in this middle QR code here. And then we have all of our social medias and some other contact information here on the right-hand side. So the big one would be that future students email. If you're not sure who to reach out to, that would be a good one to reach out to, because then we can send you where you need to go. We have our Facebook, our Instagram, our Pinterest, and our podcast. So if you're liking the sound of my voice, you can hop onto the Choose UCalgary podcast and listen to season 8 right now. And then we also have the Choose UCalgary YouTube. So all of the lectures that we have in this series, so all of the sample lectures from this month are going to be posted to that YouTube channel. So if you missed anything today or you want to rewatch some of the sample lectures, they will be on that YouTube account. And that's all I have for you guys today. So if you have any questions at all regarding admissions or anything to do with generative AI, please feel free to utilize the Q&A box or the chat function, and we can get a conversation going. I'm just going to be answering any admissions questions kind of off mic here, so I'll be typing to you, but we can also answer some questions out loud. So if anybody has anything, please feel free to put it in the chat or the Q&A box now. Oh, it looks like we have a question for you, Mohammed, in the chat here, just in the Q&A box regarding philosophy and psychology.
Yes, regarding philosophy and psychology and also regulation. These are important questions that we're grappling with. Philosophers are starting to study generative AI. Lots of different questions are arising. The question of super intelligence is arising. When are these AIs going to get dangerously intelligent? What are the dangerous things that can be done? Already there's a whole bunch of research on the deception capabilities that these AIs have. If we try to get them to deceive somebody, how good are they at it? How well can they do that? It's been being studied, deception capabilities and generative AI models. So many different questions are going to be need to ask, and in terms of regulation as well, different countries, different regions, European Union is one of the first to pass some comprehensive legislation on AI, generative AI. They are experimenting with it and they're learning, they're figuring out what could go wrong and what are the ways in which it needs to be regulated. Universities, for example, are thinking about policies at the university level. A lot of them are saying, cite ChatGPT if you use it. I don't agree with that. I don't think it's something that should be cited. It's not always producing the same results, so it's not really referenceable. But people are figuring these things out as time goes by. We're still working on it. Another question is, what is the likelihood of AI taking over jobs in the engineering field? Well, it looks like the AIs are going to be taking over a lot of jobs in many different fields, but maybe not in a lot of jobs, maybe not the entirety of the job, and maybe just because instead of 100% of the job, 70% of the job can be automated. It won't be fully replacing the humans, but one human might be able to start doing the work of 5 humans because now they have AI tools and assistants. And that one human will need to be very capable, will need to really know their stuff and really know how to use AI really well. So they're going to learn new skills. And yes, so I think a lot of people are going to move on to different jobs, maybe move on to entrepreneurship, think about ways in which they can add value to the world outside of an employment relationship. I think it's going to be a major transformation of the job landscape in general, and maybe a move in general away from a job-based world and more towards an entrepreneurship-based world.
Okay, I think if we don't have any more questions, I think we'll end the webinar for tonight. But oh, we got another question pop up. I'll let you answer that one.
Right. For example, with Google AI, there's a lot of concern about training these tools to be learning in one way or another. Yeah, that was an interesting controversy that happened when they were trying to make it really safe and really politically correct. They might have gone too far, and it resulted in it creating some very um, images that were historically incorrect. So these are, I consider these as all experiments that we're learning from in our world. I think people learned that maybe that kind of training the AI or fine-tuning the AI was not a great idea. But I also don't think just leaving the AI without any sort of safeguards or guardrails in their fine-tuning is great. An excellent source to learn about this is something called I think OpenAI calls them the system card. When they release a new model, they release a paper with it called the system card. So if you go to the OpenAI website, you search for something called the GPT-4V system card, you will see a paper that describes a lot of the work that they did on GPT-4V to create guardrails for it. And it seems to be working pretty well. Most people are pretty happy with it. But if they had not done that work, I think that AI would not have been really safe to use for the public. How would I suggest becoming more comfortable with these tools? The best way to start learning is playing. Start using the tools, play with them, and have a playful attitude about it. If you think of it too much as a chore or something that's difficult, you'll just block yourself. But if you think of it as having a playful attitude to learn something new and maybe build something cool, you'll have a better time learning. Right? I think that's all the questions.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. We really appreciated it. And I know I definitely learned something, and I'm sure all of you learned something as well. So thank you so much. And again, if you would like to rewatch this webinar, it will be on our YouTube channel, the Choose You Calgary YouTube account. So thank you so much.